Today, I am going to continue talking about the path of junction or unification in the section in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation. Let's see, it is chapter 18, titled The Aspects of the Five Paths. So again, I'm going to begin here where I left off last week with the path of junction. Now, Trungpa Rinpoche starts out by saying the path of junction and the previous path, the path of accumulation, are considered, quote, fictitious paths, unquote. Because they depend on conceptuality and various experiences, very temporary experiences that prepare us for the real path. And the real path, which is the last three of these five paths, they depend on experience. And that's why they are considered the real path. The first is depends on conceptuality, whereas the path of seeing and those after are a result of the direct experience of emptiness. And it is an experience that is beyond words. It can't be put into words. So the words that are used in the first two paths are merely, well, let's say just fictitious representations. They can't convey the true depth of the experience that you get on the path of seeing. And what we do see when we're on these three real paths is we see the true nature of things. Now, the reason why the path of junction is called the path of junction is that although it's not a real experience, a real understanding of the true nature of things, it is what we need to be on that helps us join with the real experience. So it is what prepares us for the real experience. And the experiences that you can have while meditating on this path of junction they can be pleasant. You can have experience clarity, mental stability. You can experience bliss and even find a meditation enjoyable. But these are all temporary experiences. They do not last, and they are not to be confused with actual realization. These are just experiences that happen when you meditate, and it's best to not make a big deal of them, and especially it's important to not become attached to them. Because if you become attached to them, that really blocks further progress. And we want to progress. We want to reach the ultimate goal, which is Buddhahood, rather than just find some peace and stress reduction in our practice. And on the other hand, we can have all kinds of unstable experiences, painful experiences, frightening experiences, he mentioned. We can become sad. You can be crying on the cushion. And he mentions that you can even have visions. And again, all of this is temporary, and it is best to not take any of this very seriously. Just let it come and let it go. It doesn't mean that you are not practicing correctly. It doesn't mean that you are, what would I say, being tormented by your past or something else. It's just these things can happen when you meditate, and it's no big deal. And it's best to just let them come and let them go. So it's just the play of the mind. It's just things arising in our mind. And we can become full of pride if the experiences are pleasant. And we can become discouraged and even afraid to practice if the experiences are painful, frightening, and so forth. But the important thing is to just keep practicing and let go of attaching to any kind of pleasant or unpleasant experiences that you have when you practice. That we want to continue to progress. And along with that, it's necessary to continue to have confidence in the practice and confidence in yourself and confidence in the teachers that you're receiving teachings and instructions from. So he finishes up by talking about two signs of progress. Previously, he mentioned things that might be interpreted as progress, but are not really indicative of progress, but these are signs of progress. And the first one is the sign of purity. And what this is that you'll notice that your negativities are reduced. Negative thoughts, negative actions, negative speech. That you have less involvement with the afflictive states of mind, with anger, desire, pride, ignorance, jealousy, and so forth. That these are not as strong as they used to be. You have more control as opposed to them controlling you. And your wish to help others increases. And also he mentions more clarity. So these are all signs of purity, signs of progress on this path of junction. So the other is the sign of understanding or realization. And what this means is that your meditative concentration improves, and that your faith and your devotion are much greater. So these are the things to pay attention to when you are wondering, is my practice working or not? Am I getting somewhere, or am I just wasting my time? Now, there are other signs of progress, and these are called the 4 stages on the path of unification. If you remember, the previous path had the greater or the lesser, the medium, and then the greater path of accumulation. Well, here This path of juncture is divided into 4 levels. The first is called warmth. And what this means is that there is an increase in the 5 powers: the power of devotion, enthusiasm or diligence, mindfulness, samadhi, and wisdom or awareness. That and not just a little increase, a great increase in these. So that is a sign of progress. So then the next level is peak. And here these 5 powers have been stabilized, that this is the highest level or the peak of your experience so far. So that tremendous devotion is now stable. The enthusiasm is stable. Mindfulness is stable, and so is samadhi and wisdom, awareness. The next level is patience or endurance. And what happens here is that these 5 powers have increased in their strength and their stability. And now they are called the 5 forces. Instead of power, they are considered forces. And what this means is that you can bear pain and difficulties, hardships and problems. Khenpo Karto Rinpoche in Dharma Paths, he mentions that this is what got Milarepa through some of the very great hardships and difficulties that he endured. And then the 4th stage of this path is called Supreme Dharma. And this actually is the same as the path of insight or the path of seeing, which is the 3rd path. What Supreme Dharma means is that you have this actual experience of emptiness. You experience Mahamudra. There are so many different words that mean basically the same thing. You experience absolute bodhicitta. You're no longer an ordinary being now because you've experienced this. So you are a superior being. That now you have joined the path of accumulation with the path of seeing through the path of juncture, traveling the path of juncture to its completion. And that's why it's called the path of juncture. Now, the path of insight, this is the 3rd path. It is very simply the direct realization of emptiness, the direct experience. It's not a somehow a conceptual understanding of emptiness and saying, oh, now I get it. It is just plain insight into the truth. And it's the result of, again, effort and inspiration that you put in to the path of juncture. And of course, diligence and faith are a very important part of all of this. When you experience this direct realization of emptiness, your meditative concentration improves. And it has to improve already just to experience it. And also you have to do insight meditation that's specifically intended to get you to experience this. It's not an accident. It just doesn't happen by chance. And in order to experience this, you have to have done enough purification so that enough confusion has been removed so that you can experience emptiness, even if it's brief. So again, this is not an accident. Rinpoche used this example. This is Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, that the practices and the teachings that lead you to this point are like the finger pointing at the moon. But you have to stop looking at the finger and look at what the finger is pointing at in order for you to experience the moon directly. So through purification practices, meditation, like Mahamudra meditation and certain insight practices, that you experience emptiness, the true nature of mind. He mentioned the true nature of everything, your Buddha essence, and Mahamudra. And again, there's lots of other names, but they all mean the same thing. Quote, once we have the direct experience ourselves of what the truth is, nobody can disprove it because we know what the truth is. End quote. This is on 298 of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation. So once you experience this, you know that this is the truth. There's no question about it. Nobody is going to be able to talk you out of it being a false experience. So the truth is egolessness. It's beyond conception, and it's the union of bliss, emptiness, or compassion, emptiness. And again, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche used the analogy that a person that experiences this is like a person that can't talk and tastes sugar. And he knows that he or she tastes sugar, but they are unable to talk about it. They're unable to put that experience into words. So then the next path is the path of cultivation. Sometimes it's called the path of meditation. This is the way these English translations work, is that different translators use different terms for the same Tibetan term. And over time, also, different terms come into to favor. So it is the same path, whether it's the path of cultivation or the path of meditation. And what this means is that you continue to remove negative habits. You continue to cultivate insights that you have gained on this path of insight. But you have not yet reached the goal. There's still a lot that needs to be accomplished and a lot of purification that needs to be done. you still can and will fall under the illusory experiences and habitual patterns and so forth, that not everything has been eradicated, and you kind of go back and forth between having, you might say, being guided by your experience, your direct experience, and being influenced by your habitual patterns and your karma, because you still have plenty of karma. And so this is one of the things that needs to be done as we continue to travel the path, and that is more purification. And again, engaging in actions that will help us accumulate more and more merit. So an example of falling under the influence of illusory experiences, it could be just being attached to comfortable situations. Material goods and so forth. Attached to being with your friends or people that treat you nicely, and have some aversion for people that don't treat you so nice, or people that cause a lot of harm, and so forth. What comes to mind, we covered the book by Mingyur Rinpoche, In Love with the World, and really that whole book is him talking about being on this path. He didn't ever claim to have experienced emptiness directly, but my best guess is, based on his behavior before and after doing the retreat in India, that he had a definite direct experience of emptiness, and that his book In Love with the World was about traveling these paths from the path of seeing all the way up to the path of no more learning. He may not have gotten that far. But anyway, the book gives an example of how even highly realized beings run into difficulties, and that they have to deal with them. What again keeps coming to mind is how he would say how he was surprised at how ashamed he was when he was of who he was in certain situations. So to travel these paths after you have experienced the path of insight is we have to keep practicing and cultivating our practice. We have to maintain mindfulness, and we have to continue to study. In other words, don't take a vacation. We need to work on devotion, and especially practicing all the paramitas. When we get to the next chapter, where he talks about the different bhumis, they are directly related to these 6 perfections, and you will see that. When we join these with insight into the nature of things, there will be results. that the negative factors that are plaguing our mind will weaken and eventually disappear. On page 300, he has this quoted: automatically, everything that has to be understood, all the insight that one has to develop, the primordial wisdom that has to become manifest, happens naturally. So this is getting towards the end of this path of cultivation. And he says that once you get to this point, no one can change your mind. And he goes back to the snake and the rope analogy. And once you see the snake is actually a rope, you cannot be convinced that that rope is a snake. Then the fifth path, which this leads towards, the completion of the fourth path, ends with the path of accomplishment. Sometimes it is described as the path of no more learning. So in actuality, it's not a path at all, because there's nowhere to go and there's nothing to travel on. There's nothing that can be removed, nothing that can be enhanced, nothing to develop, that it is complete Buddhahood. This is seeing the truth, the real nature of things. He mentions the word Tathagata, which means gone to thatness. Gone to what is, which is beyond description, beyond concept. At this point, you're totally free of fear or worry. There is no ego, no self. Another word that is used is sugata, which means gone to bliss. So while you are experiencing emptiness, on the other hand, you're also experiencing great bliss, that the two are really inseparable. And this is totally independent of circumstances. So then Tranggu Rinpoche mentions two kinds of awareness: awareness of exhaustion and awareness of non-arising. So awareness of exhaustion means that the Buddha knows that everything negative, any mistakes, any confusion in his mind have been totally exhausted. There's nothing left. The awareness of non-arising means that all faults, all confusion will never arise in the future. Quote, once we are back in the true nature of things, there are no more problems and suffering and sufferings that are fabricated artificially by the mind. So that completes chapter 18. And I am going to then start on chapter 19 and finish it before I open it up to questions and answers. So this chapter is titled The Levels of the Path, and it covers the 10 levels of the 5 paths. And actually it covers 13 levels. So to explain this, the first level, and the Sanskrit word that is used frequently is bhumi, B-H-U-M-I. It means ground or path or level. I think that's a better word, ground or level. And so the path of accumulation is the first level. This is the level where beginners are. The second level is the path of junction, which I started out this talk with. And this is a practice. We practice this path through our aspiration. So now the next 10 levels, and these are frequently referred to as the 10 bhumis. These are stages in the path of insight, and then the path of meditation or cultivation. And these are Bodhisattva levels. Once you have experienced emptiness, you are considered a Bodhisattva. You're not going to get an award or a plaque or anything else. And perhaps nobody else but you knows that you have experienced the path of seeing. But if you experience the path of seeing, you are considered a Bodhisattva. So these 10 bhumis are all Bodhisattva levels. The 13th level is the path of accomplishment, and this is complete and utter Buddhahood. And Trungpa Rinpoche defines path and level this way. Path means by practicing that particular state, we achieve a particular level. Level means we travel from one to the next, like traveling from one place to the next. So he lists these and gives a very brief description of them. So the first level is described as overwhelming joy. And the reason for this overwhelming joy, this happiness, is that this is the first time you have seen the truth of everything. It may be only a glimpse and it's fleeting, but you have actually seen the truth of everything for the first time, and you know it because it is such an intense experience. Another reason for it being overwhelming joy is that just seeing the truth of everything, seeing the fundamental nature of mind, removes a lot of negative factors that cause the mind to be disturbed. Another factor is that you see now that it is possible to be much more helpful to sentient beings than before. And finally, you see or realize that Buddhahood is close. You get a taste, and that's a very powerful taste. So the next level is the stainless level. And on this level, you have perfected moral ethics, the second paramita. And as a result, you've totally eliminated negative actions. The next one is the radiant. And the next bhumi is called the radiant. And this is the perfection of patience. And the idea of radiant is that there's clarity there. And closely related is the fourth one, which is titled luminous. And this is attained through the perfection of diligence. And the difference between radiant and luminous is that luminous is stronger than radiant. And also, when you are on one bhumi, since these bhumis are all experiential, you really don't know what it is like to be on further bhumis because you haven't experienced them yet. So that's an important point. It would be perhaps a conceptual understanding, but it's only conceptual and therefore it's not real. And you don't really know. So the fifth level is titled difficult to practice or difficult to purify. And this is the perfection of meditative concentration, the fifth paramita. So our minds need to be perfectly stable. And this is very difficult to achieve. But it's important because it's necessary to achieve this stability of mind in order to perfect prajna paramita, which is involved with the next level. And so level 6 is titled obviously transcendent. And this is, as I mentioned, the perfection of the prajna paramita. That here your understanding is complete. The truth is very obvious. That you have, quote, transcended abiding in either samsara or nirvana. You have transcended both samsara and nirvana. So this is a perfection of prajna paramita. Then number 7 is far gone. And that means that you are a long ways from conditioned existence. And this distinction between self and others, which was gradually diminishing as you progress on these paths and levels, that even that is now gone. That leads to the 8th level, unshakable. And these next 3 levels are called pure levels, according to Trungpa Rinpoche. And they are called pure levels because almost everything has been eliminated that needs to be eliminated. There is really very little left to do in that area. The cognitive obscuration is gone, and that is taking that which is not a self to be a self, and that which is not other to be an other. That this is completely gone, and it is unshakable because, quote, at this point, excuse me, at this point, one is no longer shaken or moved or swayed by thoughts. So it's very, very stable. The next is the excellent discriminating wisdom. And here, everyone, excuse me, you see things the way they appear, as well as the way they are. And you realize that the way things appear is an illusion, and the way things they are is real. And so you understand all aspects of existence. And this means, of course, that you understand the 6 realms and their confusion and their types of confusion, and that it is all the way things appear, but it is not real. It is just all an illusion. So then the 10th level is cloud of Dharma. And at this level, you are very close to becoming a fully enlightened Buddha. Your activity is similar to a Buddha's activity, but there still is, in Trangu Rinpoche's words, a significant difference in the qualities and purity and the realization. Gyalwang Karmapa is considered a 10th level Bodhisattva, as is the Dalai Lama. The question was asked about the 6th bhumi, the obviously transcendent, that at that one, it is mentioned that you transcend abiding in either samsara or nirvana. And the questioner said, well, didn't that happen earlier? And now, since to achieve this obviously transcendent level, you need to perfect prajna paramita, the perfection of wisdom, and so forth. And as a result, it just makes sense that that would be when you would see the non-duality of samsara and nirvana. So the questioner said, well, on the path of no more learning, then all of this was there too. So now we're going backwards, it seems. And well, this is what the difference is, that actually the path of accomplishment or no more learning is complete Buddhahood. Mm-hmm. And that is the 11th bhumi.